The stars had never seemed so close until that morning when everything changed. Captain Day 1 stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching the sunrise paint the planet below in shades of gold and blue. He had commanded military vessels for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. The alarm came at 0600 hours. Not a threat alarm, but something different. Something new. "Sir, we have an unidentified object approaching Earth," Lieutenant Tae-min said, his voice tight with tension. "It's massive. Nothing like we've ever seen." Day 1 moved quickly to the command center. On the main screen, he saw it. A ship that looked like it was made of crystal and light. 10 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. It moved through space without any visible engines, silent and graceful. "Try to contact them," Day 1 ordered. His heart beat faster, but his voice stayed calm. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. The response came immediately, but not in any language they expected. The words appeared directly in their minds, clear and cold. "Greetings, primitive species. We are the Galactic Council. You have been noticed." Within hours, Earth's government scrambled to respond. Admiral Sunmi, the head of Earth's United Defense Fleet, called an emergency meeting. Day 1 attended through a video link, still aboard his ship, the Defiant. "They want to meet us," Sunmi said. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "They're calling it an evaluation. They say every species must present themselves before the Council to determine their place in galactic society." "Their place?" Ambassador Bora asked. She was younger than Sunmi, with sharp features and a mind that worked faster than most computers. "That sounds like they're ranking us." "That's exactly what they're doing," Sunmi replied. She pulled up a holographic display showing what the aliens had sent. "The Council operates on a tier system. 9 tiers. The strongest species at the top, the weakest at the bottom. They want to see what we can do, especially our military technology." Day 1 felt something cold settle in his stomach. "And if they don't like what they see?" 7, Sunmi's expression darkened. "Then we get placed at the bottom, and species at the bottom don't have many rights." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "We'll send a delegation," Sunmi said finally. "Bo-Ra, you'll lead the diplomatic team. Day 1, you'll provide military escort and present our weapons technology. Choose your best people." Over the next week, Earth prepared. The alien ship, which belonged to a species called the Vex-Tar, waited patiently in orbit. They sent more information about the Council. There were thousands of species, they said. 4 major powers controlled everything. The crystalline Vex-Tar, the insect-like krill, the reptilian Drom, and the energy-based Luum. Day 1 selected his crew carefully. He brought Engineer Yuna, a weapons specialist who could explain human technology better than anyone. He chose Ambassador Hyun-sik, a military strategist who had studied warfare throughout human history, and he made sure the Defiant was equipped with examples of humanity's best weapons. The night before departure, Day 1 couldn't sleep. He walked through the Defiant's corridors, checking and rechecking everything. Yuna found him in the weapons bay, staring at the rows of missiles and railguns. "Worried, sir?" she asked. "We're showing aliens how we kill each other," Day 1 said quietly. "What does that say about us?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. "It says we survived. Every weapon here exists because we needed it to live through another day. Maybe that's worth something." The journey to Nexus Prime took 2 weeks. The Defiant traveled alongside 2 escort frigates, following the Vex's Targuide ship through corridors of space that humanity had never seen. They passed worlds that glowed with strange colors, nebulas that seemed alive, and structures so massive they made planets look small. Ambassador Bora spent most of the journey preparing her speech. She worked late into each night, writing and rewriting, trying to find the perfect words to represent humanity. "What if they don't care?" she asked Day 1 one evening. They sat in the observation lounge. watching the stars stream past. What if they've already decided where to place us? Then we show them they're wrong, Day One said. We show them what humans can do when we're underestimated. Bora smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And if that's not enough? Day One had no answer for that. Nexus Prime appeared on their screens like a dream. It was a station the size of a small moon, built at the exact center of the galaxy. Thousands of ships surrounded it, each one different, each one belonging to a species humanity had never imagined. The Defiant docked at a designated port. Armed guards waited, though they didn't look human at all. Some were tall and thin, made of what looked like living metal. Others were short and covered in fur. With too many eyes, all of them carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," a translated voice said. "The Council will see you in one standard day. Prepare your presentations." They were taken to diplomatic quarters, a series of rooms that tried to look welcoming, but felt like a cage. The walls were transparent on one side, showing the vast station beyond. Millions of beings moved through corridors and chambers, going about business that humanity couldn't begin to understand. Ambassador Hyunsik stood at the window, watching the crowds. "Notice anything?" he asked Day One. "Everyone's separated by species," Day One observed. "They don't mix." "More than that," Hyunsik said. "Look at how they move. The bigger ones walk without fear. The smaller ones get out of their way. This isn't a council. It's a hierarchy, and we're about to find out where we fit." That night, Admiral Sun Mi sent an encrypted message from Earth. It was brief and direct. "Do not yield. Show them what we are. Humanity will not bow." Day One read it 3 times, then deleted it from the system. He understood. Tomorrow, they would stand before the Galactic Council. They would show their weapons, their technology, their capabilities, and then they would learn what the galaxy thought of humanity. He looked out at the stars one more time before sleeping. Somewhere out there was Earth, small and blue and precious, home to 8 billion people who had spent 10,000 years fighting each other, learning, growing, surviving. Tomorrow, the Council would judge them. Tomorrow, they would discover that humanity had a few surprises ready. The Council chambers were enormous. Day One had seen big spaces before, but this was different. The room stretched upward for what looked like miles, with platforms floating at different heights. Each platform held representatives from different species, arranged in clear levels. The higher up they were, the more important they seemed to be. At the very top sat 4 beings that could only be the major powers. A creature made of living crystal that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. An insect the size of a human, with too many legs and eyes that glowed red. A massive reptile covered in scales that looked harder than steel. And something that wasn't really there. Just a shimmer in the air that hurt to look at directly. The human delegation stood on a platform near the bottom. Very near the bottom, species 7,841, a voice boomed through the chamber. It came from everywhere and nowhere. "Earth humans, you may present yourselves." Ambassador Bora stepped forward. She had practiced her speech 100 times, but standing here, with thousands of alien eyes watching, it felt different. She began anyway. "Honorable Council members, we come representing humanity. We are a young species, but we are eager to learn and contribute to galactic society. We offer our friendship, our knowledge, and our commitment to peace." She spoke for 5 minutes, carefully explaining Earth's history, culture, and achievements. She talked about art and science, medicine and exploration. She made humanity sound noble and wise. When she finished, there was silence. Then, something that might have been laughter rippled through the chamber. It wasn't cruel exactly, but it wasn't kind either. It was the sound of beings who had heard the same speech 1,000 times before. The crystal being at the top spoke. Its voice was like glass chimes. "Your presentation is noted, Ambassador Bora of Earth. However, the Council requires more than words. We must evaluate your technological capabilities, particularly your military strength. This determines your tier placement. Over we, completers, evaluate your placement. Of course, Bora said, stepping back. She nodded to Captain Day 1. Day 1 moved forward. Engineer Yuna stood beside him, controlling a holographic display. They had prepared carefully for this moment. We will demonstrate humanity's weapons technology, Day 1 said. His voice carried through the chamber, steady and clear. First, our railgun system. The hologram showed a long metal barrel. This fires solid projectiles using electromagnetic acceleration. No explosives needed. The rounds travel at 7 kilometers per second and can punch through 30 meters of reinforced steel. He waited for a reaction. What he got was something like amusement, the insect being clicked its mandibles together. The translation came a moment later. Projectiles? Solid mass? How quaint. Continue. Yuna brought up the next display. Our missile systems. These are self-guided weapons carrying various payloads. High explosive, armor-piercing, or nuclear. Nuclear, the reptilian being rumbled. You use atomic fission for weapons? How primitive. More of that laughter sound filled the chamber. Day 1 felt his jaw tighten. But he continued. Our kinetic bombardment system. We drop tungsten rods from orbit. They reach hypersonic speeds and can destroy hardened targets, dropping things from high places, the energy being said. Its voice like wind through empty halls. How very basic. The chamber was definitely laughing now. Not all of them, but enough. Day 1 could see the species on the lower platforms looking away. Embarrassed for the humans, General Krax, a krill commander with scars across his armored body, descended from a high platform. He examined the holographic displays with multiple eyes. I have analyzed your weapons, Krax announced. They are laughably primitive. Chemical explosives, kinetic energy, atomic fission. These are technologies we abandoned thousands of years ago. Perhaps it is time for a proper demonstration. With a gesture, new holograms appeared. These showed Vex-Tar weapons. Beams of pure plasma that could melt through anything. Day 1 watched as they played a recording of a plasma cannon vaporizing an asteroid the size of a mountain in seconds. Energy weapons, Krax explained, sounding almost bored. We use focused plasma, particle beams, and quantum disruptors. Your solid projectiles would never reach their target. The krill showed their own weapons next. Biological agents that could eat through metal and flesh alike. Day 1 watched footage of krill bioweapons, consuming an entire fleet of ships, leaving nothing but floating debris. The drum demonstrated gravity well generators. In the recording, massive ships were crushed like paper, their armor meaning nothing against the force that held planets in orbit. Finally, the Luum showed their specialty. They didn't destroy ships. They simply appeared inside them, passing through walls like they didn't exist, and shut down every system from within. The ship in the recording went from fully operational to dead in space in 3 seconds. You see? Krax said, turning back to the humans. Your weapons are museum pieces, relics of a time before true civilization. You throw rocks and explode chemicals while we manipulate energy and matter itself. The High Arbiter at the top spoke again. Its crystal body rang like a bell. The evaluation is complete. Earth humans, you are granted Tier 9 status, the lowest rank. You will be assigned tribute requirements and resource quotas. Council military advisors will be stationed on your homeworld to ensure compliance. You may perhaps advance in time, if you survive long enough. Ambassador Bora's face went pale. With respect, High Arbiter, we request reconsideration. Humanity has much to offer beyond our current technology. Your request is noted and denied, the Arbiter said. The Council's decision is final. You have 3 days to transmit acceptance to your homeworld. Dismissed. The human platform began to lower, taking them away from the Council floor. Day 1 looked up and saw something in the eyes of the higher-tier species. Not respect, not even contempt, just indifference. Humanity was too weak to matter. Back in their quarters, The delegation gathered. Ambassador Hyun-sik stood at the window, watching ships move through space beyond. "They've never fought each other," he said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What?" Bo-ra asked. "The council species. They've never fought each other. Look at their weapons. They're designed to intimidate, to overwhelm weaker opponents. But they're not designed for peer combat. They don't expect resistance." Scientist Ji-ah, who had been studying council technology, nodded slowly. "He's right. I've been analyzing their weapon systems. They're incredibly advanced, yes, but they're optimized for energy efficiency and minimal collateral damage. They treat war like a formal sport with rules. We don't have rules," Yuna said quietly. "We have survival." A priority message came through from Earth. Admiral Sunmi's face appeared on the screen, her expression hard. "The Council sent us their terms," she said. "They want 60% of our orbital infrastructure. They want military advisors on every continent. They want control of our defense networks. They're giving us 48 hours to comply." "And if we refuse?" Daewon asked. Sunmi's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Then they'll send a pacification fleet to force compliance. They don't think we'll refuse. They think we'll be smart and submit." "Will we?" Bo-ra asked. Sunmi looked directly into the camera. "Do not yield. Show them what we are." "That's an order." The transmission ended. The delegation stood in silence for a long moment. "They laughed at us," Daewon said finally. "They laughed at weapons that won 2 world wars, that ended conflicts, that kept the peace through fear of mutual destruction. They laughed at 10,000 years of learning how to kill each other efficiently." "Maybe it's time to stop laughing," Yuna said. Daewon looked at each of them. Bo-ra, Hyun-sik, Yuna, and the others. He saw the same thought in all their eyes. The same decision. "Get the Defiant ready for combat," he said. "Full weapons loadout. And tell the escort frigates to do the same." "We're actually doing this?" Bo-ra asked. "We're going to fight?" "No," Daewon said. "We're going to teach them a lesson about primitive weapons." The next 30 hours passed in a blur of preparation. The human delegation was confined to their quarters, but that didn't stop them from working. Daewon coordinated with his crew aboard the Defiant through secure channels. Every system was checked, every weapon loaded, every possible scenario planned. Ambassador Wojin, a secondary diplomat who had been quietly observing the council's operations, knocked on Daewon's door late that night. He looked worried. "I've been gathering information," Wojin said, sliding a datapad across the table. "Talking to lower-tier species, listening to conversations, accessing public records. Captain, Tier 9 status isn't just about pride. It's slavery with a different name." Daewon read through the files. His expression darkened with each page. Species at Tier 9 had no vote in council decisions. They paid crushing tributes in resources and labor. Their military was controlled by council advisors. Their children were taken for education on council worlds, becoming more loyal to the council than their own people. Within 3 generations, most Tier 9 species stopped being independent civilizations and became servants. "How many species have escaped Tier 9? Daewon asked. "In the last 500 years? 3. It took them an average of 200 years each. Most species never escape. They just slowly fade away." Daewon set down the pad. "Not us. That won't be us." In another room, Ji-ah worked with Yuna, analyzing every piece of council technology they could access. The station's public areas were full of displays, showing different species' achievements. It was meant to inspire, but to human eyes, it revealed something else. "Look at this," Ji-ah said, pulling up weapon specifications. "The Vex-Tar plasma cannons are devastating, yes, but they take 7 seconds to charge between shots. And they need direct line of sight. No obstacles. The Krill bioweapons," Yuna added, studying another display. "They spread slowly. Give them time, and they're unstoppable. But they're vulnerable to rapid temperature changes. And they can't handle vacuum. The Drum gravity wells," Ji-ah continued. "Massive power requirements. They can only run for 30 seconds before needing to recharge. And their area effect. They can't target specific ships without catching their own forces. They looked at each other. They've optimized their weapons for show, Yuna said slowly. For overwhelming weaker opponents. They've never needed to fight fast, or dirty, or desperate. We've done all three, Jia replied, for thousands of years. Ambassador Hyun-sik spent his time studying Council military doctrine. He accessed their public military academy database, reading their tactical manuals with growing disbelief. They have rules, he told Bo-ra, and Day 1 during a meeting. Actual rules of engagement. Ships must be hailed before firing. Warning shots must be given. Targeting civilian areas is forbidden. Retreat must be allowed if a ship signals surrender. Those are good rules, Bo-ra said. Civilized rules. They're suicide rules in real combat, Hyun-sik said flatly. They work when both sides follow them. But what happens when you face an enemy who doesn't care about your rules? Who treats war like survival instead of sport? We're that enemy. Day 1 said. The deadline approached. Through their quarters windows, they could see ships gathering in space around Nexus Prime. Not just a few ships. Dozens of them, all bearing Council military markings. A message came through on official channels. General Krax's voice was almost gentle. Earth humans, this is your final chance. Accept Tier 9 status peacefully, or we will be forced to pacify your vessels and occupy your homeworld. You have 6 hours. Day 1 stood at the window, counting ships. 30 warships, maybe more. Against the Defiant and 2 escort frigates. On paper, it wasn't even a fight. Bo-ra joined him. We could accept, she said quietly. Buy time. Build up our strength over decades. Come back when we're stronger. In decades, we won't be us anymore. Day 1 said. They'll have changed us. Tamed us. Made us like them. Whatever makes humanity dangerous will be bred out or educated away. Is being dangerous really who we want to be? Day 1 turned to look at her. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other. Brother against brother, nation against nation. Ideology against ideology. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. But we learned. We adapted. We survived. Maybe being dangerous is exactly what's kept us alive this long. On the Defiant, the crew prepared for battle. Gunnery Chief Unji ran her teams through final checks. Every railgun was loaded with tungsten rounds. Every missile tube was full. The nuclear warheads were armed and ready, though she hoped they wouldn't need them. Commander Sang-ho, captain of the escort frigate Resolute, contacted Day 1 on a private channel. Sir, my crew is ready, but I have to ask, do you really think we can win this? Day 1 looked at the Council fleet through his monitor. 30 advanced warships with technology humanity couldn't match. Against 3 human vessels with weapons, the Council considered primitive. I don't know if we'll win, Day 1 said honestly. But I know they're expecting us to lose. They're expecting us to surrender. They're expecting us to be smart and accept our place. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show them what humans do when we're backed into a corner. We're going to fight like our entire species depends on it. Because it does. And if we lose, then we lose fighting. And maybe that message gets back to Earth. Maybe it buys our homeworld time to prepare. Maybe it makes the Council think twice about trying to pacify us. An hour before the deadline, Ambassador Bo-ra made a decision. She recorded a message to the Council, her hands shaking slightly as she spoke. High Arbiter, Council members, we have considered your offer carefully. Earth has faced many challenges in its history. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have ended us. We've survived because we're adaptable, because we're resilient, because we never accept defeat until there's no other choice. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. You offered us a place in your galactic society, but you want to take our freedom in exchange. You want to control our world, our military, our future. That's not an offer, that's conquest. So here's our answer. No, we will not submit. We will not yield. If you want Earth, You'll have to take it by force. And we'll show you exactly why that's harder than you think. She sent the message before she could second-guess herself. The response came 20 minutes later. General Krax himself appeared on their screen. All of his compound eyes focused on them. "You've made a foolish choice," he said. "But the Council is merciful. This will be quick. Your ships will be disabled, not destroyed. Your crew will be taken prisoner, not killed. You will be returned to Earth once your world accepts Council authority. Consider this a lesson in humility." "We've learned humility," Day One said, stepping into view. "We learned it from each other, fighting for 10,000 years. Now let us teach you a lesson we learned the hard way. Never underestimate an opponent just because their weapons look old." Krax clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement. "You have 1 hour to evacuate your ships to escape pods. After that, the pacification fleet will move in." The transmission ended. Day One stood in the center of the Defiance bridge, surrounded by his crew. Every face showed fear, but also determination. They knew what was coming. They knew the odds. They were doing it anyway. "All hands, battle stations," he said. "This is not a drill. We are about to engage a superior force. Do not fight fair. Do not follow their rules. Fight like humans. Fight dirty. Fight to win." Through the window, the Council pacification fleet began to move into position, confident and unhurried. They thought this would be over in minutes. They were right about the timing, wrong about everything else. The Council pacification fleet spread out in a perfect formation, 30 warships, arranged in 3 neat rows, approaching with mathematical precision. They moved slowly, confidently, like predators that knew their prey couldn't escape. Aboard the Defiant, Day One watched them come. His bridge crew was silent, waiting for orders. Yuna had linked every weapon system to the main computer. Tae-min had combat solutions ready. Yoon-ji had her fingers on the firing controls. "Remember," Day One said quietly, "they expect us to run or surrender. They've never fought anyone who chose option 3. "What's option 3, sir?" a young ensign asked. Day One smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Straight at them. The Council broadcast came through on all channels. It was being transmitted to every species on Nexus Prime. Everyone would watch the humans being pacified. A lesson for other species who might think about resisting. "Earth vessels, this is your final warning," General Krax announced. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is pointless." Day One opened the channel. "General Krax, we have a message for you and the Council. You wanted to see our weapons. You laughed at them. You called them primitive. Now we'll show you what 10,000 years of human warfare evolution really means." He cut the transmission and gave the order that changed everything. "All ships, full acceleration, straight at them. Yuna, arm everything." The Defiance engines roared to life. The 2 escort frigates, Resolute and Steadfast, matched her speed. Instead of running, instead of trying to dodge, the human ships accelerated directly toward the Council fleet. On Nexus Prime, thousands of beings watched in confusion. The humans were attacking, 3 ships against 30? Had they lost their minds? The Council fleet hesitated, just for a moment. Their formations had been designed for surrounding and overwhelming slower, weaker opponents. No one had ever charged them before. That hesitation cost them 3 seconds. 3 seconds of shock while human ships closed the distance at full burn. Day One counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, railguns. "Fire," the Defiance railguns spoke. No energy buildup, no charging time, no warning. Just solid tungsten rods accelerated to 7 kilometers per second, crossing the space between ships in a heartbeat. The Council shields were designed to deflect energy weapons. They bent plasma and scattered laser beams. But solid mass moving at hypersonic speeds didn't care about energy shields. The rounds punched through like the shields weren't there. 3 Vextar cruisers lost their weapon pods. 2 Krill vessels had their engines shattered. 1 Drom ship took a railgun round straight through its bridge. Evasive maneuvers, random pattern. Day 1 ordered. The Defiant twisted and dove, moving in ways Council ships never did. The Council fleet fired back, their plasma beams cutting through space, but the human ship wasn't where they aimed. The computers that calculated firing solutions had never dealt with a target that moved like it was insane. "Missiles away!" Una shouted. Dozens of missiles streaked from the Defiant's tubes. But these weren't simple projectiles. Each missile jinked and weaved, deploying chaff and electronic countermeasures. The Council's targeting computers tried to lock on and found dozens of false signals. Half the missiles were decoys. The other half carried high explosive warheads. They slammed into Council ships, and suddenly, the neat formation was breaking apart. Commander Sang-ho on the Resolute saw his opening. The Drom ships were turning to face the Defiant, their backs exposed. He dropped his frigate's entire payload of kinetic mines in their path. The mines looked like simple spheres, until they activated. Then they became clouds of thousands of tungsten pellets, spreading out in a lethal sphere. 3 Drom ships flew straight into the cloud at full speed. Their armor, designed to withstand energy weapons, was shredded by millions of tiny impacts. The ships came apart like tissue paper. "We're taking fire," Taemin shouted. A Vex-Tar plasma beam grazed the Defiant's hull. Melting armor. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Return fire, point defense weapons," Day 1 ordered. All batteries. The Defiant's hull erupted with gunfire. Not energy weapons, just simple bullets. Thousands of them, fired from automated turrets. The Krill bioweapons had launched. Clouds of flesh-eating organisms spreading toward the human ship. But the organisms couldn't handle solid rounds. They were torn apart before they could reach the hull. Yuna's hands flew across her controls. "Sir, I have a shot on their flagship. The big Vex-Tar command ship. What's the range?" "Too close. We'd have to get within their plasma envelope. We'd take massive damage." Day 1 didn't hesitate. "Do it. All power to forward shields and ram them." The bridge crew stared at him. "Ram them?" Taemin repeated. "They've optimized for long-range combat. They don't expect close quarters. Hit them where they're weakest." The Defiant accelerated again, burning straight toward the Vex-Tar flagship. The flagship fired, its plasma cannon lighting up the void. The beam hit the Defiant's forward shields and held. The shields buckled, sparking and failing, but they held just long enough. The Defiant crashed through the failing shields and into the flagship's side. Metal screamed. Both ships shuddered from the impact. But the human ship had been designed to take damage. The flagship had been designed to look impressive. At point-blank range, Una fired the nuclear-pumped lasers. The devices were simple. Detonate a small nuclear charge and channel the energy into a laser beam for a single shot before the weapon destroyed itself. It was wasteful, primitive, and absolutely devastating. The lasers burned through the flagship's hull like paper. Systems exploded. The great crystal ship that had looked so beautiful cracked down the middle. "Break off," Day 1 ordered, and the Defiant pulled away, leaving the dying flagship behind. But the Steadfast wasn't as lucky. A Drom gravity well caught her, crushing her hull. Commander Jin Seo's voice came over the radio, calm despite the alarms in the background. "Defiant. Steadfast is going down. Crew is evacuating. Make it count." The frigate exploded, taking 2 Drom ships with it in the blast. Day 1 felt the loss like a punch to the gut, but there was no time to mourn. "Resolute, form up on us." "Una, what's our status?" "Shields gone, armor at 40%, half our missiles expended, railguns running hot." "Sir, we're in bad shape." "And them?" Taemin checked his screens. "They're retreating?" "No. Regrouping. We've destroyed or disabled 22 ships. They're trying to pull back and reassess." On Nexus Prime, the council chambers were in chaos. This wasn't supposed to happen. The humans should have been quickly overwhelmed. Instead, they'd torn through some of the council's best ships, using weapons that were supposed to be obsolete. General Krax was calling for reinforcements, his voice sharp with something the Council had rarely heard from him. Uncertainty. Day One opened a channel to the remaining Council ships. You wanted to see our weapons. These are weapons born from necessity. From species-wide wars. From times when failure meant extinction. You've had peace for so long you forgot what real war looks like. Let me remind you. Yuna's voice was urgent. Sir, I've got one more surprise. That kinetic kill vehicle we loaded. The telephone pole. The what? Just a solid rod of tungsten, 4 meters long, half a meter wide. We accelerate it to 0.3 light speed, and let physics do the rest. Day One looked at the Council fleet, still trying to regroup. At the ships that thought humanity was primitive. At the beings who had laughed at human weapons. Target their command ship, the big one in the back, fire when ready. The kinetic kill vehicle launched. No explosives, no warhead, just mass and velocity. It accelerated faster than anything the Council had ever seen. Reaching 30% the speed of light in seconds, the Council command ship tried to move. Too late. The tungsten rod hit the ship dead center with the force of a small nuclear bomb. Kinetic energy alone, converted into heat and destruction. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant along with everything around it. The remaining Council ships broke formation. They weren't retreating. They were running. In 17 minutes, 3 human ships had destroyed or disabled 22 Council vessels and sent the rest fleeing. Using weapons the Council had called primitive. Using tactics the Council had never imagined. Day One slumped in his chair, exhausted. His ship was damaged, his crew was wounded. And they'd lost the Steadfast with all hands. But they'd done it. They'd won. Open a channel to Nexus Prime, he said. All frequencies. Let everyone hear this. When the channel opened, his voice carried to every species on the station. This is Captain Day One of Earth. You laughed at our weapons. You called them primitive. Obsolete. Museum pieces. You were right. They are. We don't use shields because we learned to make armor that works. We don't use energy weapons because we learned that solid mass never misses. We don't wage clean, civilized war because we know there's no such thing. Every weapon we carry was paid for in human blood over 10,000 years of learning how to survive. You've had peace. We've had war. And now, you know the difference. He closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were battered, exhausted, and victorious. Take us back to the station, Day One said. I think the Council wants to talk. The Defiant limped back to Nexus Prime, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. The Resolute flew beside her. Equally damaged, but still functional. Behind them, the Council's pacification fleet was gone. Some ships destroyed, others damaged beyond repair, the rest fled to distant repair stations. The docking bay was different this time. No armed guards waited with bored expressions. Instead, there were hundreds of beings, watching in silence as the human ships docked. Some looked afraid, some looked angry, many just looked confused. Day One walked down the boarding ramp with his crew behind him. They moved slowly, exhausted from the battle. Yuna's arm was bandaged. Taemin limped from a bad fall during the fighting, but they walked with their heads up. Ambassador Bo-Ra met them at the bottom. She looked like she hadn't slept. The Council has called an emergency session. They want to see us immediately. Are we under arrest? Day One asked. I don't think they know what to do with us, she replied. The walk to the Council chambers felt different. Before, they had moved through crowds that barely noticed them. Now, beings stopped and stared. Some moved out of their way. Others followed at a distance, curious. The chambers were packed. Every species wanted to see this. The human delegation took their place on a platform. But it wasn't at the bottom anymore. Someone had moved them higher. The High Arbiter's crystal body was cracked in places, as if the flagship's destruction had physically hurt it. Its voice, when it spoke, was colder than before. Earth humans. You have committed an act of violence against Council forces. You have destroyed ships, killed crew members, and defied a lawful Council order. Explain yourselves. Ambassador Bo-Ra stepped forward. Her voice was steady, clear. High Arbiter, with respect, we did not commit violence. We defended ourselves. You sent a fleet to pacify us. That's a polite word for conquer. We chose to resist. You were given a chance to surrender peacefully. You were given a chance to treat us as equals, Bo-Ra countered. We came here in peace. We offered friendship. You responded by ranking us at the bottom of your hierarchy and demanding we submit to occupation. That's not peace. That's not civilization. That's tyranny wearing a friendly mask. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species shouted agreement. Others called for the humans to be punished. The four major powers at the top watched in silence. General Krax descended from his platform, his compound eyes fixed on Day One. You fight without honor. You use dirty tactics. You target ships that are already damaged. You don't follow any rules of warfare. You're right, Day One said simply. We don't. Want to know why? He didn't wait for an answer. Because rules only work when both sides follow them. What happens when you face an enemy that doesn't care about your rules? When you meet a species that hasn't had the luxury of civilized warfare because they've spent thousands of years fighting for survival. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's history, wars, battles, conflicts that spanned millennia. This is us. This is what we are. We've fought each other with stones, swords, guns, tanks, aircraft, and nuclear weapons. We've nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. Every weapon you saw today, we developed it fighting our own kind. Every tactic, we learned it because we had to. We didn't choose to be warriors. We became warriors because it was that or extinction. Ambassador Hyun-sik stepped forward. I've studied your military doctrine. It's impressive, efficient, elegant, but it's designed for overwhelming weaker opponents or formal duels between equals. You've forgotten what war really is. It's not a sport. It's not a contest with rules. It's survival. Jia added her own analysis. Your weapons are optimized for energy efficiency and minimal damage. Our weapons are optimized for maximum effect, regardless of cost. You fight to win quickly and cleanly. We fight to win at any price. That's the difference between a species that has peace and one that earned it. The Luum energy being shimmered, its voice like distant thunder. You claim your violence makes you strong. We see only barbarism. Then you don't see clearly, Bo-Ra said. Yes, we're violent. Yes, we're dangerous. But we're also survivors. And survival means we adapt, we learn, we change. You've been at the top so long you've forgotten how to grow. She pulled up more data. I've studied your council's history. Thousands of years old. How many new technologies have you developed in the last century? How many species have moved up in tier ranking? How much has anything actually changed? The silence was her answer. You're stagnant, she continued. Comfortable, safe, and safety leads to complacency. We're not safe. We've never been safe. That's made us sharp, adaptable, creative. You use energy shields because they're efficient. We use armor because shields can fail. You use plasma weapons because they're powerful. We use railguns because they never run out of charge. Every choice we make is about survival, not elegance. A small voice spoke up from one of the lower platforms. A being that looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard. What you say is true. My species was placed at Tier 8 200 years ago. We have tried everything to advance. The Council always says no. They want us to stay where we are. More voices joined in, species from the lower tiers, all sharing similar stories. The hierarchy wasn't designed to help them rise, it was designed to keep them down. The High Arbiter's voice cut through the noise. Enough. This session is about human aggression, not council policy. But it's connected, Ambassador Hyun-sik said. You're aggressive too. You just hide it behind rules and civilization. You conquered just as brutally as anyone. You just did it legally. The reptilian Drum leader spoke for the first time. Its voice was deep, rumbling. The human speaks truth. We have become soft, comfortable. This demonstration has shown weakness. We did not know we had. What are you saying? The High Arbiter demanded. I am saying that perhaps Tier 9 is not appropriate for these humans, the Drum said. They defeated our best fleet. They used tactics we could not counter. They fought with a ferocity we have not seen in centuries. This deserves recognition. The insect krill leader clicked its agreement. The Drum is correct. We evaluated them based on their technology alone. We did not consider their tactical innovation, their willingness to sacrifice, their absolute commitment to victory. These are valuable traits. The energy loom remained silent, but didn't object. The High Arbiter's crystal body rang with displeasure. You would reward violence? We would recognize capability, the Drum said. Is that not the point of the tier system? A vote was called. It took hours. Species argued, debated, formed alliances. The humans waited, exhausted and uncertain. Finally, the result came. By majority vote, the High Arbiter announced, its voice tight. Earth is granted Tier 3 status, with a provisional path to Tier 1, pending further evaluation. The chamber exploded in reaction. Tier 3 was where most medium powers lived. It meant voting rights, trade privileges, military autonomy. It meant Earth would keep its freedom, but the High Arbiter wasn't finished. However, Earth must agree to several conditions. First, you will share your military tactical doctrine with Council Defense Forces. Second, you will provide military advisors to help us modernize our approach to warfare. Third, you will accept Council observers on Earth to ensure compliance with galactic law. Daewon and Bo-Ra exchanged glances. We accept, Bo-Ra said, with one condition of our own. Any Council observers on Earth must accept human law and human authority. They're guests, not rulers. The Arbiter considered this. Finally, it agreed. Over the following weeks, everything changed. Species that had ignored humanity now sought them out, wanting to understand their military methods. The Drum Military Command requested human tactical instructors. The Krill asked to study human weapons design. Even the Vextar, proud and ancient, admitted they had lessons to learn. Admiral Sun Mi arrived from Earth with a fleet of reinforcements, just in case. She found her people being treated as respected equals instead of conquered subjects. You did it, she told Daewon and Bo-Ra. You actually did it. Quote, we got lucky, Daewon said. They underestimated us. No, Sun Mi corrected. You showed them what humanity is. Dangerous when threatened, but controlled. Violent when necessary, but preferring peace. Strong enough to fight, wise enough to talk. That's not luck. That's who we are. 6 months later, when an invasion came from outside the galaxy, it was human tactics that saved the Council. The invaders were powerful, aggressive, and overwhelming. The Council's neat formations and efficient weapons couldn't stop them. But the human approach, dirty fighting, aggressive maneuvers, weapons used in ways they weren't designed for, turned the tide. Daewon commanded the defense fleet, with officers from 20 different species under his command. They learned fast. They adapted. They survived. After the battle, the High Arbiter approached him personally. Its crystal body had healed, but there was something different in its manner. Less arrogance, more respect. We laughed at your weapons, it said. We were fools. You weren't fools, Daewon replied. You just never needed what we have. The galaxy was peaceful. You kept it that way. But peace requires strength, and strength requires knowing how to fight. An ugly truth. The truth usually is. The Arbiter paused. The Council is considering promoting Earth to Tier 1. Your leadership during the invasion earned this. But I must ask, what will humanity do with such power? Day One looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth spinning peacefully below, of billions of humans who had sent him out here to represent them, of the choice they faced. We'll do what we've always done, he said finally. Survive, adapt, learn, and help others do the same. We learned how to fight through pain. Maybe we can teach the galaxy how to defend itself without losing its soul. The Arbiter's crystalline body chimed softly, a sound that might have been approval. Perhaps you truly are worthy of standing beside us. Welcome, humans, to the galactic community. As equals, back on Earth, Ambassador Bo-Ra stood in the same place where Day One had watched the sunrise months before. The planet turned below, peaceful and beautiful, dangerous and fragile. Human, she thought about the journey, about the laughter when they showed their weapons, about the battle that followed, about the respect they'd earned. Do you think they'll remember? Someone asked beside her. It was Yuna, now promoted to Chief Weapons Officer for the entire fleet. They'll remember, Bo-Ra said. We taught them that strength comes in many forms. That old doesn't mean obsolete. That sometimes the most dangerous species is the one that learned to survive by fighting itself. And us? What did we learn? What? Bo-Ra smiled. That we're stronger than we thought. That our ugly history makes us valuable. That maybe, just maybe, all those years of war taught us something worth sharing. How to protect what matters. How to stand up when threatened. How to turn our worst traits into our greatest strengths. The sun rose over Earth, painting the world in gold. Somewhere above, human ships patrolled with alien allies, protecting the peace with weapons that had made the galaxy laugh. No one was laughing anymore.